everybody. Glad to have you all here to really just talk about solitary confinement and the erase bill coming up here in DC. As you probably know, Herbert and I have been working with the Unlock the Box coalition here in DC. Um, and I had the good privilege and pleasure to be able to attend the national convening with folks from the other coalitions of Unlock the Box in different cities and states across the country. And it was a great experience to meet such enriching people, but it also highlighted for me just how unique I think DC's situation is when it comes to criminal justice specifically. And so that's kind of like really what drove my commitment to really want to be able to support the movement in DC for ending solitary confinement. Um, so with that, that's kind of my connection with it. And I guess Herbert, you can just start, introducing yourself, and everyone just kind of introduce themselves, their background. Um, I guess I'll close out because I just introduce like what we're doing, why we're here, and then I guess everyone can just go down. And then I'll just kind of close out with introducing like my background and connection outside of just unlock the box.
I got you. Again, I'm Herbert. I'm a member of More Than Our Crimes. I'm an outreach member with them, and we More Than Our Crimes is a group of returning citizens who came into society, and we're trying to show the community that we're more than our crimes, and we're giving back to the community and to others as far as outreach and helping them learn and understand their rights and their privileges to vote. So being an incarcerated DC resident, you have the right to vote while you're incarcerated, wherever you're at in the BOP. So that's what we focus on for the main part. And I also work with DC Justice Lab in the Unlock the Box campaign and eliminating restrictive and segregating enclosures. And yeah, that's the act that we're putting forth right now in 2023. You know, that's what we're here for. Discuss that and the torture of solitary confinement and why it shouldn't be allowed.
Hello, my name is Gene Downing. I am community outreach specialist, Free Minds Book Club and Writing Workshop, co-lead, co-chair of Thrive Under 25. I am also co-lead of an initiative called the Second Chance Hiring Alliance at the Council for Co-Excellence. I'm a DC native, returning citizen who is staunchly advocating for not only ending mass incarceration, but ending solitary confinement. And that's why I'm here.
Nice. Appreciate you, brother.
Hello, how y'all doing? So I'm Chanel Cheney, owner of Boat Yoga. I'm a trauma-informed yoga instructor, a community advocate, and a community leader. And I'm here from the perspective of a child with an incarcerated mother, and just to give, through my healing process, my perspective and what I've learned on how solitary confinement has affected my family generationally.
Yeah. Appreciate you all being here, and honestly just happy to share a space with you, right? All of you, because I came to DC in 2016, and I'm very hyper conscious of the fact that I'm not from DC, doing a lot of this community-based work, and I know for a lot of people who are from DC, right? Ironically, a lot of the spaces where very important decisions are made about the community they aren't often driven by people who are DC natives, right? And so that's why, for me, just being hyper cognizant of that, I really respect you all in this work and really do defer to you all's expertise and experience and just your need to be able to kind of drive this stuff, right? So I just wanted to share that to say I really respect you all, and your opinions in this work, and as people. But so in that vein, I also realized even though I've been incarcerated myself, right? I was incarcerated in North Carolina, and I don't have the experience of being in DC jail, right? Or someone I love being in DC jail. And so that said, I also like that's why they refer to you all a lot as well. So nonetheless, the main thing we're talking about is solitary confinement, right? And so again, I was not ever in solitary confinement when I was incarcerated in North Carolina. So I guess we can just start just by talking about like your experience with solitary confinement, just in general, right? Like your experience and how that's informed, like what you feel now about kind of ending solitary confinement. And whoever wants to start.
I mean, I can start. When I was 19, I was convicted and sentenced to 82 years to life. At the time, we were shutting down Lawton, which was our DC prison. So when I went to prison, I was sent to the feds. And that's when I got the wake-up call about how not just solitary confinement in general, because over DC jail, you're going to, know about it. And prior to that, I was in juvenile facilities. You also will have an experience. But it was when I went into the federal system is when I seen how they use solitary confinement, right? It's so many different ways they use it. And one of the ways in which it's often overlooked is how they actually use it on the compound, because they would lock down the whole compound, right? So now they essentially put the whole jail into solitary confinement, not just the actual units that they have for, disciplinary, what they call, disciplinary disciplinary segregation, right? But when they lock the whole unit down, they put you in the cell. You don't get 23 and 1 when they lock the whole unit down. You get 24 hours straight. Now, every 3 days, you would come out, supposed to come out, to take a shower. But even then, they handcuff you, take you to the shower, lock you in the shower. So you're still confined, right? Take you out the shower, handcuffs, back to your cell, and you back on lockdown. And this goes on sometimes for 2 months, depending on the reason why the jail is locked down. That alone, in my opinion, has to stop, because you're punishing the whole prison for something that one or maybe a few individuals allegedly have done. Second, they don't realize the psychological trauma that it plays not only on you but also on your family, because that automatically ends a lot of the different communications that you once privileged to have. Only leave you with snail mail. And if anybody know anything about federal prison or prison in general, that almost isn't anything, because they play with your mail, right? You might not get your mail, your family might have sent a card or something, and it might have a little bit too much perfume on it.
Right.
So they send it back. Again, I'm locked in my cell. I did nothing. So what does that do to me psychologically now? Then fast forward, we come off of lockdown, and let's say I do something. Now I get put in the actual segregation unit, right? Where you're supposed to have 23 and 1, which means you in your cell 23 hours out of the day, you come out for rec for 1 hour. Which is not sufficient enough, because you don't come outside. They still lock you in the cage. It's more of an illusion. You're outside, but the cage is outside. In my experience, I've been to, we call it the SHU, the Special Housing Unit. I've been to the SHU several times. Sometimes for short stays, sometimes for longer stays, right? I mean, my longest stay ultimately ended up me being transferred. And it felt like that was the only way out the SHU, was to get transferred to another institution.
Well, and if I can just interject real quick, there are two things you pointed out that I honestly hadn't really thought about and considered, because I do know they do distinguish isolation between confinement, right? And so you like kind of talked about kind of both of those, how like in some instances you are isolated, right? But other times you're like confined. And so I think that's part of it, like that I didn't realize and think through the distinction until kind of learning more, working with the Unlock the Box and like really looking at like the legalese of like the definitions of those kinds of things. Go ahead.
Now, because I was gonna touch on what Gene was speaking about. Actually, in DC jail, like when I went in DC jail in 2003, they were actually on 22 and 2. Like that's the way the jail operated. You only got 2 hours of rec out a day. So if you came out in the morning this day for 2 hours, you didn't rec again until the next day in the evening time. And when you rec the next day in the evening time, then you'll rec the following morning and so on, forth and so on. So with that being done, like, and this was general population, but they said this was because of security measures, and they use this as their excuse for anything, but you're fully staffed. Like, how is this security measures? Like, you're supposed to be running it. So in that sense, and then when you went to the hole or the shoe, whichever one you want to call it, the special handling unit, you only showered every 2 or 3 days. Like, you didn't get wrecked. You shower and wreck every 2 or 3 days because they did it by cells, and again, you couldn't wreck with but so many people, and there wasn't but so much space. So, like, because of the conditions, and that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part about it to me was not being able to defend yourself. You at DC jail, you got to get handcuffed to leave out your cell to go to the shower, and then you're walking in a shower down a tier, and people can assault you through the bars. They don't have no concern about you or the police, so they're throwing their feces and all their waste and stuff on you, and it's just because of the environment you're in. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, it's because of people mental issues and things like that. And this is where you're housed at. They're not getting no help for the issue that they having, and their troubles are being forced upon you as well. Because now, even at night, 2, 3 in the morning, because their medication and wore off and they're hungry, they up banging on the door. Like, this is the way they communicate. Like, they just gonna sit here and bang and yell.
Yeah.
But I'm 2 cells down, or the cell right next to them, and they're banging on the wall that we share.
Yeah.
Like, that's when it becomes torture for real.
Yeah. That's very graphic, but I think it's important for people to like know and hear. And I'm curious what I know about your experience, right? Being a child. I know you don't experience that part of it, but like, I guess what was your experience like? Did you know those things that your, mom was going through, or like, what was that like from that perspective?
So no, I didn't know that that's the type of stuff that she was going through. But when she came home and we was trying to start the family reunification process, just how we would show up, I realized like I had a lot of resentment towards her. But when we started to like try to heal the relationship, the way she would show up, she had conditioned herself a certain way for 18 years. She did 18 years. I was 3 when she left. I was 21 when she came home. So even though like I was an adult, physically, you locked up with your parent or when your parent is like, gone away. So I was still that 3-year-old little girl when she came home who needed her mother. So that had kind of, because we wasn't like, that awareness wasn't there, and it was like, well, you grown, but still wanting to be a mother, but not really knowing how. It was just a lot. And then as I started to learn, I actually learned about, I started to do like research around like what a person would be like after they did, that long amount of time. And then I wound up being invited to do the play that y'all did with Lori and them. And that was during my healing journey. And it was like real eye-opening for me, and I was learning like that was an awareness of like this is what she experienced, and I learned like her first 5 years was real rough for her, so she spent a lot of time in and out of solitary confinement. She wrote a book about it, so she spent a lot of time in and out of it. So learning that, and then learning like what solitary confinement does to the brain and how a person may show up and in their relationships, it has made it real difficult for us to like really repair our relationship.
Yeah. I do want to talk about, I guess, like what has been your approach you found effective, like to healing from it, because one of the things my perspective on like just being in this work is like, I know we have to like change like policies and laws and all those things, But what I know is that a lot of that involves what other people can and will do decision wise, and that's out of our control. We definitely can and should like try to influence that. But what's been most effective and most expedient is like what can I do in what's in my hands to be able to do to help this process for me. And so healing has been a part of it.
Yeah. And self-awareness is a real big piece. Like I had to learn about my trauma, my triggers. Like when I was staying with her, when I was getting my certification, it was a trauma-informed one. So we did, when I went to her house, it was like 12 hours a day. She wasn't there. And when I was like, I went into a whole little panic attack. I was crying. I was like, why is she not here? Like, this is so inconsiderate. And I had to, calm myself down, like, Shawnee, be grateful.
Yeah.
By the time she got there, I was good. Everything was good. But the next day when I went, we learned about triggers. And it was my first time even learning what a trigger was. So in that moment, and it seems so small and cliche, but in that moment, I was that 3-year-old little girl who was scared that her mother was gone and never would come back. So it's so complex and real. So you gotta really learn yourself. And for me, my biggest thing was like I wish I would have kind of had this healing beforehand, so that way I could have showed up for her differently when she came home, rather than with so much resentment and anger. Yeah. So that is what I'm learning to release, and so we can't get to that point.
What? There's some children out here need some help adjusting to their parents.
A whole lot of them, especially ones that's been gone, because you feel like your parent left you. If you don't have the awareness of mass incarceration and what this country has really done to our people, then you don't really understand. Like, you just have a perspective of, oh, my parent left me and they didn't really care, So, and we internalize stuff as kids. And if you don't have that help to redirect those thoughts, you're growing up with that internalization even as an adult. So it's a lot of people out here that need that help for sure.
Yeah, I can attest to that because I served 21 years. So, and my daughter, she wasn't even born when I went to prison. She was still, she was born a month after I got arrested, right? And so everything she knew about me was incarceration. So when she couldn't understand if she came and saw me with my family and we in a setting like this, and then you might come on another occasion and you might can't even get in because the jail is locked down, right? Or B, I'm on lockdown. I'm in the SHU. So I can get the visit, but the visit is only for an hour or 2 hours, and I'm sitting in the booth with a glass, and she don't understand the difference between what happened between the last time and this time, right? And when I explained to her, because I, for lack of a better way to put it, I kept it real with her the whole way, right? When I explained to her that, I'm in the SHU, I'm in the hole, I'm in the cell by myself, and sometimes I might have somebody put somebody else in the cell with me. She was like, why would they do that? Why would they lock you in the cell by yourself? You gonna do? Would they think you gonna do something to somebody? And then that's when I started to explain to her all the different variations of why would they put you in the SHU, right? And one of the things when I got to this particular point, one of the things that she really couldn't wrap her mind around, and to be honest with you, neither could I to this day, is that they would put you in the SHU for your own safety. They would take you, who did nothing to no one, right? And they would lock you in this cell. Then on top of that, not on top of that, if you come off the bus and into a unit, and let's say you can't find a cell, then they will put you in the SHU. So you're getting punished
for everything.
Right. And one of the biggest things, and you touched on it a little bit, in prison that a lot of people don't really talk about is the mental health issues. There are a lot of mental health issues in there. And their answer to it is lock them in the cell and feed them meds. Oh, and if they still get a little, out of control or seem like they're going to restrain them, or then they'll put them on what they call suicide watch. Now they will lock you in the cell, strip you of everything you have, all your property, and just have somebody sit outside your door and watch you. And then it's another inmate for that, for that matter, to watch you. And it's like, how is that helping somebody with mental health issues? It's not. But this is.
And so, like I said, I was never in the hole myself, right? But you know, my first experience to it. So, like, I went to prison in college. You know, I've never kind of thought I would end up in prison and everything. So I remember I was in processing, and you know, after you do like your medical stuff and all those like beginning parts of processing, you transfer to like the high rise, which was a different type of unit. I went from like a cell block where we were all like, you know, just like bunk beds in a big block, to then being in like individual units within the pod. And so again, that was my first time being in that kind of unit. And the way it worked, there were like two pods on a wing that were kind of connected, and like there was a like your doors are open for most part of the day, but during count time, you had to be in your pod, right, and get in your cell. But like the way it was worded when I came over and it was written on the thing is you had to be in your wing. So when it was called for count time, I didn't think, oh, I need to go in my individual cell in my pod, because the thing says you have to be in your wing. And then so like this is my first day in there, and so like the CO came, was like, oh, you're not in your thing, you know, you're going to the hole, come with me. So they took me back to like where they were, and you know, then they were like, you know, who's bringing in weed. And I know nothing about it. Apparently, like there had been like some weed in the pod they had found, which I guess trying to figure out who had done it. And basically, they were trying to say like they told me like basically give them a name so I don't go to the hole. And I'm like, look, you can check my records. I just got in here today. I don't know nothing about none of that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I literally just got in today. Even if I wanted to, somebody, I couldn't. You know what I'm saying? But that was my first experience seeing, like, to your point, how solitary confinement is used. It's used as punishment. It's used as a tool to get you to do what they want. Like, it's like, if you don't do what I want, you go into the hole, because they know, like, it's understood that the hole one is like a severe form of punishment, right? So before like I even get into that, right, I always like to think about like, you know, for me, so in my work, I operate a social impact enterprise, right? So I'm always thinking at the end of the day, what's going to get us the results or impact we want, right? And when it comes to like public safety, because I know in North Carolina, like the prison system is called the Department of Public Safety. Right. And so most prisons, you know, the idea is we are locking people up because we're trying to ensure public safety. Right. And so the outcome you're looking for is just for environments to be safer. And what we have evidence of is that's not working. Right. But I think because we take the approach of punishment, I think at the end of the day, and I think you can attest to this, because when we're thinking about, you know, was it let it be safe? It's got to be restorative. Communities have to be made well from whatever we're doing.
Not even just that, but just like real quick, like my brother was 10 months when my mother went in. So I'm pretty sure she was experiencing postpartum depression, to your point of the mental health. So of course her first 5 years was going to be rough if she wasn't getting the mental health treatment that she needed.
And just leaving a newborn on the street too, like, and her children, like, yes, for sure.
Yeah. And if like communities aren't made well from whatever we're doing to keep the people accountable. So at the end of the day, communities are made well by there being accountability, right? And punishment does not equal accountability. You can be punished and still not be held accountable. Right. And if what's happening from the impact of punishment is make it harder for you to even care about like, it's just counterintuitive. And so to the point of why I believe solitary confinement should just be abolished is because I think it's counterintuitive to helping people and holding people accountable for what they have done, right? Particularly when it's people, to your point, the whole unit's locked down and they didn't even do anything, right? Yeah. That's just punishment. That's not accountability. So it doesn't help us reach that aim.
And it doesn't teach them accountability.
Right.
You know, teach them no accountability.
Yeah.
Which is something I said more recently, like. So I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you gonna say something?
With that, I also was going to say, you know, thanking everybody for coming. You know, it was a pleasure sitting here with you all, and you know, being able to share and build, and hopefully we can continue on, you know, at a later date. Is there any last words that you'd like to give, and anything you would like to leave?
Yeah, well, I do. I always got some things that I want to give.
Yeah.
Especially in, regards to anything that deals with incarceration, and more specifically, solitary confinement, because it's actually greater than one prison or one unit. In the prison, because we also miss some of the time the fact that there are entire prisons that are built for solitary confinement.
Wow.
Good call.
Right? And then it's built with the agenda to lock up the most dangerous of criminals, right? So you have to have been just some serial murderer or serial rapist,
but not all the time, because sometimes you could have just been a mastermind, is what they call you, because you can actually think.
But that's where I was going at. So that's how they build it. But then over time, they start putting anybody that they want, they consider. You can just be someone with what they call influence, and they will send you to these prisons. In fact, it got to the point where you can be someone now that only just catch too many incident reports. So you could just be a person who you came to prison for just the most meaning thing, but while you were in prison, you amassed such, jacket. That's what we call your file, right? Now they say, oh, we're in prison, you're becoming a problem, so we're going to send you to this facility, and you're going to be on lockdown. And this lockdown, you are 100% segregated from not just any other, like the outside world, but you are any human contact. You don't get the contact with no human. You don't get a celly. Hell, you don't even get your mail. Somehow, some way, your mail becomes something that's dangerous to you. You read your mail on the screen. You don't get to go to a shower anymore. That whole going to the shower, that's dead. Guess what your shower is? It's in your cell. So you take the shower in your cell. Your tea, everything is there. You have no reason to leave your cell. So it's not even 23-1. It's 24 hours, right? And there are whole prisons like this. So for us to end solitary confinement, we can't just settle for this individual prison who has a unit in it. You got to all the way across the board. You got to get it out, because I've seen guys go to these prisons. I have never been to one, and I thank God for that. But I've seen guys who have, and I also seen guys who go to the SHU and come out a whole lot different than they were when they went in.
Yeah, no, that's real. And like, even for me, like to your point, I'm grateful that I had not a terrible experience in prison based on a lot of experiences I've heard, but also I got mail, like I got visits, and you don't have to even do like a major research to like see like the people who do get visits, they do get mail regularly, typically have fewer like incident report because they have something to look forward to. You know what I'm saying? Like I think the most dangerous person, no matter prison or anywhere, is a person who has nothing to like look forward to or live for, right? Or nothing to lose in that way. And so that's also one of the harms, I think, of getting people nothing to look for or to live for, right? But yeah, that's what that made me think about.
Yeah.
You want to share anything with us, Chanel, before we go?
No. I'm good.
Well, again,
I'll say one thing. I just, from everything that we heard, right, what I assess from it, really is about accountability, right? Because there are these reasons why you are supposed to go to segregation or isolations, but what is the theme is that there's really no way, like they skirt through different reasons to be able to send you there, right? And one of the reasons why I think things like the erase bill are like needed, because again, for me, I'm always thinking, well, what can I do? Like policy, that's for someone else to kind of do. But why I care about it and why I think it's worth like even like pursuing as who I consider a layperson, right? I've never been in solitary. I'm not from DC, all these things, but like the reason why I think that matters is like bills like this keep them accountable. Like they have to report certain kinds of things, and it makes it more transparent so that there can be held a little bit more accountable to like why. And even that in itself, I think will help, because like as we said, there isn't any of those things. So that's why,
I'm being a little bit vulnerable. So I really do feel like this should be like pushed and embraced because through my healing journey, one of the things that I realized, like when my mother didn't have the capacity to show up for me as a mother, it was creating a disconnect with me and my kids. So it was hard for me to want to show up as a mother for them. So that's why I decided to take my healing journey so serious, because I knew I needed to break like that generational impact or trauma or whatever you want to call it. So just understanding the generational impact that it is really having, not just like the physical separation, but the emotional and spiritual separation that's also happening too.
Yeah. So I know we have like a really big opportunity to like really like just show that we kind of care about this coming up on September 6th. We don't have a lot of details, but I know that is like the next big thing that we're doing that we want people to kind of show up for. Like, because again, people, even if you have never been there, when their families who are still out here are impacted, that impacts all of us, right? So that's why, like, yeah, we kind of gotta care. I know that's the next time we can really engage, and I think you can share Herbert like how they can like at least connect with that.
So yes, again, I'd like to thank all of y'all for sharing, and the way you can engage and help out with us is stay tuned to DC Justice Lab, the Unlock the Box campaign. It's actually a national campaign, and DC Justice Lab is pushing the one here in DC. But like as everybody spoke, solitary confinement is worldwide actually, and it's something that's hindering everyone, humanity as a whole, because it messes with our mental health. So please check out DC Justice Lab and Unlock the Box campaign, and also Eliminating Restrictive and Segregated Enclosures Act of 2023.
Nice.
Thank you.